guys, Death Knight of Anime here, and I'm bringing you my review for My Hero Academia, or Boku no Hero Academia, chapter 130. And this chapter was very informative because the main meat of it was basically around Izuku and All Might, who was basically telling Izuku, laying it on the table and telling Izuku everything. And he basically said, "Are you?" And I like how let's backtrack. But yeah, he was the majority of this chapter was All Might who's telling Izuku everything about Nighteye, all for one, everything, one for all, and how and everything about how Togato was originally All Might's successor, everything like. It starts off with Izuku's first ever his first day on the job being over. Him and Togata giving 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 Nighteye the information that they had gathered from that brief encounter with Overload, and then from there it switched over to UA for a bit of comedic material with it was with Great Boy, as we like to call him, who's basically saying, who's basically asking, "Hey, buddy, were there any lady heroes with erotic costumes?" And I'm like, "Bro, what the fuck?" I mean, like, yeah, Great Boy, he's his usual self. I wonder where he's interning at. Like, I imagine it's probably with some erotic lady hero, like he said. But yeah, actually, I wonder how he would have reacted if he saw Bubble Girl. He probably would have loved it. Um, but yeah, after that little bit of comedic filler, it switches to All Might, to Izuku, and who's Izuku, who's confronting All Might, and how actually Izuku brought up a very good point at the beginning of their little argument or discussion about how if 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 All Might isn't willing to trust Izuku with any of his past or any truth, then how can, or any facts about him, then how can even be how can he even be willing, or how can he even be able to be All Might's successor? And from there he can, if he tells him the truth, he can learn about All Might's mistakes and learn not to repeat them. So a little bit of a little bit of nice commentary there about how telling the truth can actually help a character's development. And yeah, again, Izuku was completely on the money with that one when he said that he needs to know the truth about All Might. Everything needed to be laid on the table, including One for All, Nighteye, and his connection with and his connection to how Togata was supposed to be All Might's successor to begin with. And actually, there's a bit of funny there's a funny kind of 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 cruelty to the fact that Togata was All Might's previous successor, because as we learn in this chapter, apparently Izuku becoming All Might's successor was pretty much purely on chance. None of it was actually supposed to happen in a way. Apparently, as even if it's basically the way it was just the way All Might tells it. If he hadn't met Izuku that day, it would have been Togata for sure who inherited All for One, and that's kind of fucked up to think that it wasn't. I mean, I guess we could kind of interpret it that way, but it wasn't destiny, it wasn't fate, it was just pure luck and chance that Izuku had met All Might that day, and that All Might had decided to pass his quirk on to Izuku. So it's just like, wow, like that just brings a whole new perspective on how Izuku had become the All Might's successor. But I guess in a way, it still worked out itself in the end. Um, Another thing we learned is that pretty much pretty much uh, uh, as much as I may hate Night Eye for the fact that he hates Izuku for inheriting All Might's quirk, rather than Togata. he did bring up as shown in the little flashback between him and All Might. Uh, I guess that foresight thing really comes in handy because he basically he predicted the future whether he used his foresight or not at the time, because he predicted that if he didn't pass on his quirk eventually, then some villain would come along and just and just stop All Might from doing the work that he loved. And technically, he was right technically he whether he predicted it willingly or not, he was right with that whole battle with one for with all for one and All Might. Like that basically ended with All Might basically using the rest of his power, becoming quirkless, and basically he suffered a a complete a worse fate than death, honestly itself. So he didn't die like Foresight ever like Nighteye had predicted, but he definitely suffered a fate worse than death. And yeah, that's just insane, honestly. Also, from that flashback with of what I could see with Izuku with All Might and Nighteye arguing, um, it's interesting because on one hand, his whole the way he was talking about how they had already picked out how he and the principal had already picked out how he and the principal had already picked out a successor for All for One, aka aka you know we all know it's Togata at this point. Um, it was interesting because it was presented in a way where it was both on it was both a matter of pride for both for for both All Might and Night Eye. Like in All Might's sense, he wanted to continue fighting because as long as the symbol of peace was around, that would greatly reduce crime. And with Night Eye, he just wanted the next person to inherit all for one as soon as possible. So, but the thing about it is that like all my like it makes me understand this whole thing with Night Eye's mentality about all one for all about it. Um, Provides interesting perspective about how he acts now, because I get the feeling that Night Eye's hatred towards Izuku is basically one part him almost whining like a little bitch, but at the same time it's pride. Yeah, because if you think about it, All Might, he basically All Might in the flashback had said, "You already picked out my successor, didn't you?" And that's and that can be caused by and that can be caused simply because Night Eye basically wanted things to go the way he wanted them to. Like he didn't want like it's interesting because in a way Night Eye, he kind of has a similar mentality a mentality and pride that's similar to Bakugo, in which that he wants things to go exactly how he wants them to go based on his quirk. So if he predicts a landslide, a landslide will go and a landslide will happen and a hero will save it. That's how he wants it to go. He doesn't want any diverging pathways. And again that's part of the reason as to why he probably hates Izuku, is that All Might choosing Izuku over Togata is basically is basically uh is basically All Might that All Might not All Might All Might All Might completely diverging away from Night Eye's original path. And yeah, so it's interesting in the sense where yeah, it's almost like I said, it's one part him running like a little bitch, and then another part he's almost letting his pride get his pride the pride in his quirk and his abilities get in the way of logical facts. Like, look, you gotta let it go. You gotta let the past go. Izuku is the quirk holder of One for All now. Deal with it. But yeah, it is it is interesting how it is interesting when you get a look into Night mentality of how he almost wants things to go the way he plans them to in a way. But yeah, um, and it was interesting to see how and from the rest was just kind of the rest of it was just kind of interesting to see how they're and to see how they differentiated and how their values were and how to see how Night Eyes and All Might's ideas and values were different and how it split the two apart. So yeah, it's so yeah, this chapter was just interesting because it provided a lot of background on the way that on the way Night Eye thinks and how he probably holds a bit of a not necessarily a grudge but a little contempt for All Might for basically completely never even listening to him and whatnot. But whether we like it or not, he did still predict the future, whether with his quirk or not, on a number of things, including All Might's fate. But yeah, guys, that's my review of My Hero Academia or Boku no Hero Academia, chapter 130. Yeah, intense chapter, and I'll see you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I'll see you later, guys. Ciao. This is Death Knight of Anime signing off. See ya.